Mr. President, may I, on behalf of the Thai delegation and myself, join ourselves with the previous distinguished delegates in congratulating you for being unanimously elected to the presidency of this historic and, indeed, one of the most important conferences sponsored by the United Nations. At the same time, I would like to extend our congratulations to the other distinguished members who have been elected to the various offices of this august body. Please allow me to congratulate the Secretary General of the conference, Mr. Enrique Penalosa, and his staff for the highly commendable work in preparing this conference. I think that all will agree with me that we should also congratulate the United Nations Environment Programme for its success in implementation of this important outcome of the Stockholm Conference. May I also take this opportunity to thank the Canadian government for their generosity and hospitality that enabling us to conduct our deliberation amongst the beauty and wonderful environment of Vancouver, which is itself an extraordinary example of what human settlements can become. Mr. President, before I discuss Thailand's case with respect to human settlement, please let me say a few words about my general impression concerning the topic. To our Thai people, the basic philosophy of the habitat has been a part of our life for a long time. Some of you may know that, according to Lord Buddha's teaching, an essential element of the four basic means of human need for livelihood is shelter, while the other three are food, medicine, and clothing. Therefore, it is quite natural for us to support fully this conference on human settlements. The Thai government and people are highly interested in the work of habitat and the problems of settlements, as we are presently grappling with them and trying to solve some of these problems ourselves. We, as well as other people all over the world, are waiting for the results of the habitat, which hopefully will help us to improve the present approach to human settlement and environment problems. It is also our hope that the success of this conference will help us to realize in a much shorter time and with less difficulty what we have been trying to achieve for years. During the past year, human settlements and environmental problems, both in rural and urban areas, have been my major responsibility and concern. Because of rapid population growth and unplanned population distribution, Bangkok became overpopulated and overpolluted. The present government is trying to develop major cities in other regions and new towns to relieve Bangkok of its already too congested condition. Moreover, the rural people, which amount to about 80% of the total population, are still in need of better housing and facilities. In my present capacity as chairman of the National Environment Board and also as Minister of Agriculture, I have planned to speed up the land reform program, which includes rural settlement as well. In order that the land reform program of the Ministry of Agriculture will be a successful one, it should be conceived as an integrated rural settlement program, whereby not only land use is considered, but also shelter, employment opportunities, recycling of effluent, reusing of waste, energy from nature, as well as conservation of nature and culture have to be taken into consideration. At present, the Technical Advisory Committee of the National Environment Board on Human Settlement and Population is carrying out a research activity into this matter jointly with other related agencies of the Thai government. One of the keen promoters of rural settlement for some time is His Majesty the King of Thailand. He has many settlement programs under his patronage and direction. A well-known one is settlement for hill tribe people in the north of Thailand, where they are not only given land and shelter, but also taught modern cultivation, canning, and food preservation. Here, wind is being utilized as a source of energy for both economic and social purposes. At present, His Majesty the King has taken a new lead to donate his lands for the land reform program. Many Thai landowners follow His Majesty's exemplary lead, and now the program is receiving more popular support. Another benefit of human settlement activity in Thailand, which may be of interest of many of us here, is the establishment of a forest village as a means to implementing the reforestation program. A common problem among developing countries is the rapid decrease of forest land due to either development or illegal destruction. However, the program of reforestation in our country is taking a new approach. Mr. President, here I would like to ask for your permission to present to this conference the capsule of our film representation under the title of A Forest Village in Thailand. The main idea of the film concerns the establishment of a settlement of local people who, at one time, might be some of those who cut down forest trees themselves, but who now are working hard to plant new trees, while at the same time building a new settlement and a new life there for themselves and their families. May I now present the capsule of the film.
We support the views of other delegates that there is a need to clarify what is meant by standard. The language
These are the children of a special kind of village in northern Thailand. Their future depends on the conservation of forests. A problem whose solution can be as elusive as the cutters who destroy so much forest. The illegal wood is cut into small transportable pieces right in the forest. Forest destruction is a serious problem with serious consequences. Mammal Forest Village did not just happen. It's a human settlement created a few years ago with a specific purpose. Its purpose is replanting teak. The inhabitants of the forest village are a collection of resettled people who were recruited from various parts of the country. For their labor, they get a small wage. And the right to grow their own cash crops. Usually these are grown right among the newly planted teak trees. What makes it work? We can't honestly say it's collective spirit. Rather, for the time being, good leadership from Kunwinai, the plantation head. Whether the forest villages are viable or not is something we are still finding out. Settlements, like trees, take a long time to mature.
Mr. President, finally, I wish to stress that this conference is tackling one of the most difficult and complex problems facing all of us nowadays. What we need are action rather than mere words. The cooperation of all parties is urgently needed, especially in the implementation of plans and projects that are being set here on this rostrum. My delegation felt greatly honored that Thailand had been elected one of the vice presidents of this significant conference. As I can only stay here for a limited time, I look forward to hearing of your good ideas and success from my colleagues. It has been a great honor and pleasure for me to be present here and represent my country at this conference. Thank you, Mr. President.
A number of proposed amendments to pass on to the working group.
I wish to thank the Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand for his remarks. The next speaker is the Minister of Communication and Public Works of Guatemala, His Excellency Mr. Ricardo Arguedas, to whom I now give the floor.
By utilization and manpower by human resources. Amendments to C3 to emphasize the conservation of scarce natural resources and increasingly the independency of developing from foreign-owned
Mr.
technology.
President, Mr. Secretary General of Habitat, distinguished delegates,
to make it
friends,
more meaningful.
all. I would like to say a few words to those who are attending this meeting of paramount importance on habitat sponsored by the United Nations. Before going to the substance, I should like to wish all participants every success. I also wish to express my gratitude for the courtesies and hospitality of the people and government of this great country, Canada. To start my statement, I shall show you a capsule of human settlements in Guatemala. Capsule, please.
La problemática de asentamientos humanos.
Problem of human settlements in Guatemala.
Rural areas to those of urban areas, so as to redress one of the causes of the rural-urban drift. Thank you very much.
Guatemala has an area of 130,000 square kilometers, including Belize. By the year 2000, we shall have 12 million inhabitants. 4% of the population is indigenous, a great Mayan civilization. The most important settlement of the Maya area was Sekal, which flourished 200 years before Christ until 200 years AD. The Guatemalan indigenous person conserves and preserves the ancestral customs of the Mayas. There is a rich amalgamation of Christian and heathen rites in his religion. The people settle irregularly, adjusted to the local topography. The folklore is one of the richest of the world. In regard to human settlements in the interior of the Republic, the National Housing Bank has given impetus to housing projects under plans of self-construction with the use of local techniques and materials. Antigua, Guatemala, is one of the best examples of Hispano-American colonial settlements and was therefore declared a colonial monument of America. The metropolis started in 1776. The original outline was of colonial Spanish inspiration. The violent process of urbanization in the last decades has given rise to a concentration of services, high population rates, rural exodus, besides a disorderly urban growth with low density. Basic housing solutions are being provided for the neediest people. These low-cost programs do not attain a high density, and urbanization is considered to be very costly in comparison with other programs. There are also private plans for the higher income bracket financed by the Federal Housing Authority. Construction systems have been traditional. Prefabricated parts are acquiring increasing importance in building housing. Planning will be channeled toward the regionalization of the country in homogeneous areas. The most important urban centers will be strengthened, and we will create integrated systems in the periphery of the urban agglomerations to control their growth. Action taken will lead to an improvement in the quality of life of the people, and we are facing a challenge of the future and the censure of future generations. The human being as such, spiritually and physically, must be the main objective and concern of the world. Other human activities along this line of thinking are secondary. You all know the potential and uncontrollable population explosion which is affecting all peoples of the world with giant steps. Some preceding speakers have already referred to this undeniable reality. And while to repeat it might appear to be commonplace, it is necessary because of the magnitude of the problem. The frontiers of the world are about to disappear or have disappeared. I'm not referring to the unnecessary geopolitical frontiers, but the frontiers of mankind. We find human settlements or sprawls which lack space for recreation. There are industrial cities without housing or without the corresponding area of agricultural support. There are urban prisoners, there are jailers in them. There are prisons in cities, and there are prison cities. And why? Because of a lack of humaneness, lack of technical and humane planning in the growth of cities or of small communities, because of a lack of real and just control in the use of the land. A factory pollutes the air here, another pollutes the waters. We are living in a world of chaos, and something radical has to be done to remedy this. This is the challenge we face, and Habitat, this conference, can be the solution, or at least the beginning of a solution. In my country, my beloved Guatemala, 5.5 million human beings live in an area of 130,000 square kilometers, and before the end of the century, the population will rise to 12 million. We have human settlements and numberless human sprawls. Large population groups live in settlements on the edges of ravines, and other perhaps larger groups live in their depths. Sewage seeps up. There's no drinking water. Dogs and vermin pollute everywhere. How sad, but this is the way it is. On the 4th of February last, over a major part of the territory of Guatemala, a strong and tragic earthquake struck. From the bowels of the earth, energy was released which destroyed more than 250,000 dwellings, and what is more important, because it is tragic, caused the death of 23,000 Guatemalans, wounded 80,000, of which many will remain handicapped for the rest of their lives. In addition, the national economy was affected in every sector. It is estimated that the cost of physical reconstruction is more than 1 billion quetzales, which is equivalent to the dollar. But speaking of the earthquake, what is most important to point out is that the damages were due to two main causes: the release of the energy accumulated throughout geological fissures, and to the uncontrolled human sprawls. It is necessary to regulate technically and humanely, and I have said this: Habitat is the solution. Let us do what we can to obtain solutions for man at this conference. Guatemala is for Habitat because Guatemala believes in man, and because Guatemala believes that man should be protected in his life, in means of living, environment, in his physical and spiritual health. Adequate measures in this respect have been taken or will be taken in the near future. To conclude, I should like to avail myself of this opportunity to express my gratitude to all peoples, institutions, and persons who gave us physical and moral help on the occasion of the tragedy of the 4th of February 1976. Our gratitude to our world friends.
Under Rule 50, if that was not heard, I did thank the Minister of Communication and Public Works of Guatemala and thank the technicians for turning on the sound system as well. Under Rule 54, I invite the Vice President of the Commission of European Communities, Mr. Carlos Garcia Muñazo.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, in 1948, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and proclaimed it as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations. Nearly 30 years later, the gap between reality and aspiration is immense, not least in respect of the right to settlement. If we recall that the population of the world is expected to double within the next 30 years, may I therefore congratulate the United Nations on its decision to convene this great gathering of representatives of mankind and our Canadian hosts on the arrangements that have been made to receive us. I'm confident that the government and international organizations will respond to the needs and the opportunities presented to us at this conference by deciding to take effective action to bring about the rapid and continuous improvements in the quality of life of all peoples, which the Declaration of Principles defines as the foremost goal of human settlements policy. The states which founded the European Economic Community set themselves the same goal. They determined to lay the foundations of an ever closer union among the peoples of Europe and affirmed as the essential objective of their efforts the constant improvement of the living and working conditions of their peoples. The activities of the communities related to human settlements cover a wide range, which includes the construction and modernization of housing for workers, policies and actions concerning social affairs, environment, regional development, and transport. Through the European Development Fund, the developing countries have received infrastructures such as schools, hospitals, water supply systems, and roads. The European Coal and Steel Community has assisted in the construction or modernization of over 140,000 dwellings. The modernization program has led to the modernization of 800 houses in 9 different places. The program showed how it is possible to create modern living conditions at 25 to 40% of the cost of constructing new dwellings. Following the success of this program, the Commission emphasized modernization within its housing programs, thus supporting the increased efforts of member states to safeguard and improve their housing stock wherever possible without resort to wholesale demolition and replacement. The European Committee has been very successful in removing barriers to trade between member states and in promoting the free movement of persons and capital within the communities. The citizens of member states have benefited by receiving higher incomes and having a wider choice of goods. But prosperity has not reached all areas or all social classes, nor has it been achieved without damage to the environment. The need for remedial action is clear. In 1973, the limited actions for the protection of the environment carried out in the community itself were replaced by a comprehensive program of action on the environment. This was followed by the Social Action Program in 1974 and by the creation of the Regional Fund and the Regional Policy Committee in 1975. The Program of Action on the Environment is designed to reduce the pollution of air and water and to control the disposal of wastes and the composition of certain products and the activities of particular industries. These measures will improve the quality of life for everyone, particularly for urban dwellers who are now subjected to the dangers and nuisances resulting from the concentration of people and activities in cities. Studies have been made of the causes and effects of the growth of a megalopolis in northwest Europe and of the environmental problems found in city centres and coastal areas. In addition, a European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions has been established in Ireland to promote research into the factors which influence the quality of the living and working environments. These activities will be continued and extended under the second programme which the Commission has recently proposed. A society may be judged by the way it treats its weakest members. Social programs give priority to two groups of people who are seriously disadvantaged: migrant workers and handicapped persons. There are also disadvantaged regions, predominantly agricultural, which are affected by industrial change or structural underemployment. In the period 1975-77, the European Regional Development Fund will have 1,300 million units of account, approximately $1,625 million, to assist members in their efforts to promote development in disadvantaged areas and so help to rectify imbalances in growth and reduce the concentration of production and population in highly developed areas. This outline of the policy and actions of the community may have given you the impression that the communities are almost entirely preoccupied with their internal social, economic and environmental problems. To right the balance, I shall now outline our development aid policy. In 1975, a group of 46 African, Caribbean and Pacific countries concluded negotiations for a new, enlarged and deepened relationship with the communities. The new Convention of Lomé, which is called ACP-ECC, which came into force on 1 April 1976, represents not just an extension of the former association policies, but also marks a significant step in the rapidly evolving relationship between the developed and developing countries. A large European Development Fund, the fourth in the series and amounting to 3,500 million units of account, or about $4,375 million, will be deployed, as in the past, in the form of non-repayable grants aimed at the development of production, infrastructure, social services, trade promotion, and so on. Particular emphasis will be placed on the provision of infrastructure, especially health facilities, in rural areas. In addition, ACP goods, with the exception of a tiny fraction of ACP trade in areas covered by the community's common agricultural policy, will be accorded free entry into the community. Innovatory features of the convention include an imaginative scheme to seek to stabilize earnings from experts on which ACP economies are particularly dependent, and proposals to establish a center for industrial development. I can safely assert, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, that the European communities are outward-looking in character and practice, as evidenced by the Lomé Convention and by their participation in the work of the United Nations and its agencies, including especially the United Nations Environment Programme. From the facts which I have referred to, and from ongoing programs, the community have demonstrated their willingness to share in the common effort to reduce and eliminate the deficiencies in human settlements and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. It's an honor for me to assure you on behalf of the Commission of the European Communities that we share the concern and the hopes which have brought us all here, and that we sincerely want the decisions of this conference to match the needs and expectations of mankind. Thank you, Mr. President.
I wish to thank the Vice President of the Commission of the European Communities. And before adjourning this session, I would like to call upon the Secretary of the Conference, Mr. Kirdar, to make some announcements.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I should like to say that every day the Secretariat prepares a complete and revised list of the capsules submitted to the Secretariat. The list is distributed to delegations, but it is only the capsules which have an asterisk in this list which are available for viewing. We hope to have a complete list shortly. As I have already announced this morning, the General Committee of the conference will have a meeting tomorrow morning, Wednesday the 2nd of June at 8:45 a.m. in Conference Room C, Pacific Ballroom in the Hotel Vancouver. The General Committee is made up of the President of the Conference, the 33 Vice Presidents, the Rapporteur General, and the Chairman of the committees, 1, 2, and 3. It has just been announced that the Western European and other states of the first committee will have a meeting tomorrow morning between 9 and 9:45 a.m. in Conference Room B of the Hotel Vancouver. It deals with questions of international cooperation. And finally, Mr. President, as I announced this morning, Mrs. Barbara Ward will deliver a lecture immediately after the adjournment of the plenary in this room. And the next meeting of the plenary will be held tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. With those announcements, this meeting is now adjourned. We're making...
Before we adjourn, I have one